with the second phase of version 2.6 being around the corner and with many players likely a bit more focused on the release of perhaps a lot of players are also looking forward to, or maybe even more, for the return of Ciaccona, not only since she is the best in slot sub DPS for Cartethyia, but especially since her release was a bit unfortunate with the fact that she was squeezed between both Zani and Cartethyia, alongside pretty much every other character as part of the anniversary. So a lot of players simply may not have had the ability to pick her up during her initial release, which is why this time round will be a much better chance at securing Ciaccona alongside potentially her signature weapon. So with that being said, I do want to go over Ciaccona's value as of version 2.6 in a bit more detail, and especially her synergy with Cartethyia, alongside touching upon the value her signature weapon holds and then wrapping it up with if she is still worth it for your account. As always, if you are interested in more WutheringWaves content, would very much appreciate it if you could subscribe and drop a like if you enjoyed the video. Kicking this off with the value Ciaccona holds within her kit. As an Aero sub DPS, she doesn't function like most sub DPS characters since her kit does revolve around the dots mechanic. Essentially, all of her abilities ranging from basic attacks to deliberation will be able to inflict multiple stacks of aero erosion, which deals damage to enemies but of course will provide incredible value for a certain character that deals damage scaling off the amount of aero erosion stacks inflicted. With Cartethyia, she is able to inflict stacks of aero erosion in her base form, but ideally would need the help of Ciaccona that can provide stacks of aero erosion off field in order to maximize the damage dealt from the second liberation, which amplifies the damage taken by targets by 20% for each aero erosion stack inflicted and stacks up to 5 times. So with there being the instance of Cartethyia alone missing 1 or 2 aero erosion stacks on enemies, that will lead to her big hitting ability missing out on either a 20% or 40% damage amplification. Though alongside that, there is also Cartethyia's inherent skill, which provides a max damage increase of 60% when enemies have been inflicted with 6 stacks of aero erosion, which really is only maintained comfortably with the assistance of Ciaccona. So in other words, if you are looking to always ensure Cartethyia deals the most damage with the second liberation, alongside maximizing the inherent skill, then Ciaccona is certainly going to be a must due to the amount of aero erosion stack she is capable of inflicting. In addition to that, there is also the outro skill, which will provide great value specifically for Cartethyia, since aero erosion damage dealt to enemies is amplified by 100% for 30 seconds. Now this would of course be the most restricted aspect of Ciaccona's kit, since no other character in the game deals damage considered as aero erosion damage. But with that said, it doesn't provide that much value since Cartethyia doesn't actually deal much damage considered as aero erosion damage. Though again, with the fact Cartethyia is the only character currently that can make use out of the outro skill effect, it simply means both Cartethyia and Ciaccona synergize much more with each other than alongside other characters. Now, along with the ability to inflict tons of aero erosion and amplifying aero erosion damage, Ciaccona not only deals considerable damage herself but is able to crowd control enemies with her enhanced heavy attack, which will consume her forte stacks in order to pull enemies together and will be able to perfectly set up the main DPS. Of course, with there being many instances, and especially within WutheringWaves where multiple enemies may be slightly spread out, it is clear how valuable the ability to crowd control would be, and even more so with there not being that many characters with the ability. Alongside that, Ciaccona does accumulate concerto energy extremely quick, has one of the most unique liberations in the game, and even provides allies with a 24% aero damage bonus via her basic attacks. So whilst being a fantastic sub DPS for Cartethyia due to the aero erosion capabilities, Ciaccona can still provide incredible value for aero as a whole, which will allow her to synergize with characters such as Jiyan and possibly even Yuan if utilizing him as a main DPS. Now that, alongside the Gust of Welkin Echo set, Ciaccona would be capable of dealing more damage herself along with providing an additional 15% aero damage bonus to allies. allowing her to be even greater as a sub DPS for pretty much any arrow DPS. Additionally, Ciaccona can even synergize with characters that do revolve around the Spectra Frazzle mechanic. Considering the extremely unique liberation that allows Ciaccona to perform a concert provides the option to inflict either arrow erosion or Spectra Frazzle. So characters such as Zani and Phoebe could synergize with Ciaccona alongside every other character that utilizes the Spectra Frazzle mechanic in the future, which simply means for a kit that revolves mainly around the arrow erosion mechanic, Ciaccona does have fantastic versatility to synergize alongside various top tier characters, but of course will remain as the best in slot sub DPS for Cartethyia and will provide quite a bit of comfort in ensuring she deals the most damage possible. Just touching upon her signature weapon, since not only will it hold fantastic value, but also since it's likely one of the most skipped weapons considering the unfortunate banner placement. The Woodland Aria provides a massive 36% crit rate main stat and through the passive will provide a standard 12% attack bonus, alongside receiving a 24% arrow damage bonus and reducing arrow resistance by 10% on enemies inflicted with arrow erosion. So essentially this weapon is going to allow Ciaccona's damage to be a lot more reliable, but more importantly will be insane for pretty much every arrow DPS currently and in the future, given the passive literally enables additional arrow damage without any effort. So considering she does synergize with Cartethyia the most and naturally alongside Jiyan, they would definitely benefit from Ciaccona being equipped with the Woodland Aria. However, if you decide to utilize Ciaccona alongside non-arrow characters, then the Woodland Aria would of course provide much less value, which means either the Last Dance or the Static Mist would then be perfectly viable options to utilize instead. The Last Dance in specific will simply allow Ciaccona to deal a lot of damage due to the insane crit damage main stats and resonant skill damage bonus, whereas the Static Mist will in fact allow Ciaccona to provide support towards any DPS aside from Cartethyia, since the weapon's passive will provide a 10% attack bonus for the resonator switching in. Of course, that alongside the crit rate main stats and energy regen bonus, it would allow it to be a solid alternative, but especially since it is a standard banner 5-star weapon that you can target. So essentially the Woodland Aria does remain to hold great value, but just like Ciaccona herself, the weapon will be even more valuable when alongside Cartethyia, since she is the only character that doesn't benefit from the Static Mist, which means if you do want to enhance Cartethyia's damage, then the Woodland Aria will be essential. However, even with that said, the signature might still be a skip considering the simple fact Ciaccona alone is more than enough for Cartethyia to deal enough damage to clear through all content. But of course, the weapon will be worth it if you do want to maximize the damage she deals to just clear content slightly quicker. So overall, Ciaccona still has one of the most stacked kits for his sub DPS, considering her damage dealing capabilities alongside the damage amplification she provides and her other values she brings for the main DPS, such as crowd controlling enemies and providing them with lots of heal time due to having a quick rotation. So with all of that being considered, it's quite clear that she will be incredible for Cartethyia and will enable her to deal the most damage more comfortably. Of course, she isn't a must in order for Cartethyia to function, and especially when Sunwire is a perfectly viable alternative. But if you can afford to, then picking up Ciaccona will be a better option alongside Cartethyia. Aside from Cartethyia, as mentioned, there will be various teams that Ciaccona can be utilized in, such as Aero comps and Spectro Frazzle comps, which means you could definitely consider picking her up even if you don't have Cartethyia due to her incredible versatility and long-term value. But of course, she will only be utilized at max potential only when in the arrow erosion composition. And with that, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'd really appreciate it if you could subscribe for more WutheringWaves content, and if you enjoyed the video, drop a like. Also drop a comment down below on whether you will be picking up Ciaccona or will you be skipping her rerun. And yeah, hope to catch you guys later.